Introduction. What is civilization? Civilization is not some abstract or mythical concept. It's a very real thing. And I'll argue here that some civilizations are better than others. Civilization is a system of human cooperation that can develop in local, insular communities, like the 100 or so individuals who inhabit the North Sentinel Island in the Bay of Bengal, or over vast distances and centuries, like the Roman Empire. Civilization is how people organize themselves in a civil way to produce the goods and services that sustain them and allow for the development of knowledge and culture. It's the legal, economic, social, and religious systems that make it possible for large numbers of people to live together in relative peace, rather than chaos or constant warfare. At its core, civilization is a set of solutions to the problems of scarcity and conflict. It's about how groups of people have developed ways to distribute resources, settle disputes, protect individuals and property from internal or external threats. Institutions like the rule of law, private property, family structures, they're not random outcomes. They're tools that different societies have developed and refined over time to manage these challenges. One factor often overlooked in discussions about civilization is the role of ideas. What people believe, and more importantly, what they know. This has a real, tangible effect and impact on a civilization or culture. Every civilization in history, whether the Chinese, Islamic, Nordic, Mongolian, Inuit, European, or even the thousands of warrior civilizations of sub-Saharan Africa, have had to deal with the question of who has access to what knowledge and how that knowledge is to be spread. Most civilizations, particularly those heavily reliant on central authority, have been far more resistant to the broad dissemination of knowledge than others. This book is an effort to make the claim that Europe's faith in the common myth of Christ's resurrection led to modern civilization as we know it today. I'll make the case that without Christianity, the Industrial Revolution and the technical revolution that followed would have never occurred. When people hear the word myth, they often think of centaurs, unicorns, or children being raised by wolves. But a myth doesn't have to be a fictional tale. At its core, a myth is simply an origin story, a narrative that explains the roots of a people. This book will argue that a common myth is the mortar that holds any civilization together. When those in power know that the myth they are relying on is fabricated, they inevitably suppress widespread knowledge, as knowledge could undermine their legitimacy. For this reason, mass literacy has been frowned upon and discouraged in totalitarian civilizations of the past. Even to the point where when technologies began to emerge that could lead to mass literacy, those in power rejected that technology as disruptive and suppressed it. Europe, however, was different. Its belief in the Christian narrative centered on the Abrahamic faith. Beyond that, the resurrection of Christ as the Messiah and Savior of the world. This claim was not seen as a fabrication by those in power. This genuine belief led in the 15th century to an invention. That invention was mass printing. And this ignited a compounding explosion of literacy. And that literacy, in turn, set off a chain reaction of technical innovation and global interaction that we are still experiencing the effects of to this day. In short, my premise is this, that despite the hems and haws of the Vatican, European elites of the Middle Ages allowed this Pandora's box of mass literacy to be opened, because they held the general belief that the myth giving them their power and legitimacy was true and could not be destroyed by a literate population, only reinforced, which is exactly what happened via the Protestant Reformation. This revolution that should have led to the end of European civilization as we know it did the exact opposite. It taught Europeans how to work together despite disagreements and how to strive forward towards a common goal using the scientific method that was invented and developed by Christians. This book will illustrate how the foundational values of Christianity were instrumental in shaping the modern world, its laws, its social fabric, and its sense of individual freedom. The decline of Christianity, however, could, and I would argue almost certainly will, usher in a dramatic unraveling of these advancements. Just as a building made from stacked bricks may look solid and permanent from a little bit of a distance, without mortar holding the bricks together, there isn't much preventing the building from falling. Without the guiding principles of Christianity, society risks either disintegration, much like the collapse of ancient civilizations, leaving future generations to puzzle over the Statue of Liberty protruding from the sand. Or worse, it could spiral into a dystopian nightmare where the loss of moral compass, combined with technology, makes even the bleak authoritarianism of Orwell seem preferable by comparison. This book will argue that the decline of Christianity will inevitably lead, once again, to a priestly class of powerful elites whose Gnostic understanding of their proprietary secrets are such that they must return the masses to a state of ignorance and illiteracy to protect themselves and their place at the top of the pyramid. For this to work, they must eradicate Christianity and create a new myth for the masses, one those in power know to be a lie.